Most people know the basics about American money during World War II. The government printed special bills, but the story of money during that global conflict is much richer and more complex. Beyond the well-known emergency banknotes, the U.S. Treasury and its printer, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, BEP, were incredibly busy. The war was a monster that needed to be fed with billions of dollars. The federal budget exploded from a modest $9 billion in 1940 to a staggering $90 billion just 5 years later. It was a financial upheaval that demanded quick and creative solutions. The attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 was a shock to the nation, but it was just one piece of a larger puzzle of Japanese aggression. Japan struck at many places at once: Guam, the Philippines, and British colonies like Hong Kong, Singapore, and Malaya. These lands fell under Japanese control, reshaping the world map. America's entry into the war meant all hands on deck for the BEP. The first big challenge was figuring out how to pay for the war. World War II was an incredibly expensive conflict. The United States alone spent over $300 billion. That's the same as over $5.3 trillion today. It was an enormous task, requiring clever thinking and rapid action. So, one of the first steps was to increase taxes. People had to pay more. A new tax called the victory tax was added in 1943. To make it easier, the government started automatically taking taxes out of people's paychecks. But even with higher taxes, the government needed more money. That's where war bonds came in. These were like loans from the public to the government. It was a way for ordinary people to help the war effort. Unlike the bonds from World War I, these new bonds were a better deal. They were sold at full price and paid a small amount of interest over time. It was a safe investment that also helped the country. The government wanted everyone to buy bonds, so they came up with different kinds to suit different budgets. There were big bonds for wealthy people and small ones for everyone else. They even made special bond stamps for kids to collect. It was a fun way to teach children about saving and helping the country. While all this was happening, everyday life was changing too. The war ended in October 1945. It's interesting to note that no commemorative banknotes were ever made for President Roosevelt, who sadly passed away in April of that year. The American people had truly stepped up during the war. Out of a population of over 130 million, an incredible 85 million bought war bonds, totaling a massive $185 billion. That's over $2,000 per person in today's money, at a time when the average yearly income was also around $2,000. The patriotism and sacrifice of ordinary Americans were essential to the war effort. While the BEP focused on war bonds, they still had their regular jobs to do. The war led to a huge increase in mail, so more stamps were needed. Plus, with the booming wartime economy, demand for paper money skyrocketed. To meet this demand, the BEP even dug up an old stockpile of $29 million in banknotes from 1929 that had been sitting in a treasury vault since 1935. But the war created new challenges for the BEP. With the threat of a Japanese invasion, the government decided to take a drastic step, removing all regular U.S. money from Hawaii and replacing it with special banknotes. These bills looked like normal money, but had Hawaii printed on them in big letters. It was a way to protect the Hawaiian economy in case of an attack. These special Hawaiian banknotes were only used for a short time. By the end of 1944, the threat had passed, and regular money was allowed back in Hawaii. But these unique bills remain a fascinating piece of World War II history. Beyond Hawaii, the war raged in other parts of the world. When the Allies invaded North Africa, they needed money too. So, the government created another special kind of money: silver certificates with a bright yellow seal. These bills were for $5 and $10, and they were really beautiful. Unlike the Hawaiian money, There weren't as many rules about using these yellow seal bills back home, but they were still a special kind of money meant for a specific purpose. Interestingly, there might be a mistake in a famous book about money. It says there was a $20 yellow seal bill, but no one else seems to have heard of it. Both the Hawaiian and North African money were created for a few reasons. First, it was a way to protect the money if the enemy took over. Second, soldiers needed cash to spend. And third, the newly liberated countries needed stable money to get back on their feet. While the government was busy with special banknotes, they were also changing regular coins. Because there wasn't enough copper, they started making pennies out of steel. These steel pennies look different and are fun to find. The nickel, a coin just 4 years old in 1943, also underwent changes due to the war. Originally made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, its composition was altered to conserve nickel for the war effort. The new mix included 56% copper, 9% manganese, and 35% silver. Interestingly, these war nickels contained no nickel at all. To distinguish them, the U.S. Mint began placing mint marks on all nickels, including the first ever P for Philadelphia. These wartime coins became a collecting passion of many people. Along with the dime, quarter, and half dollar, they form a unique piece of history. It's ironic to note that silver, often sought after by collectors today, was deemed less valuable than copper and nickel during the war. Beyond the official currency, there's another fascinating chapter in the wartime monetary story: prisoner of war, POW, currency. Over 425,000 German, Italian, and Japanese POWs were held in over 700 camps across the United States. To manage their labor, a system of camp-issued currency called chits was created. These paper vouchers allowed prisoners to purchase goods and services within the camp. As a final twist, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing conducted a secret test in 1944 using $1 silver certificates. In June 1944, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, BEP, conducted a mysterious experiment with $1 silver certificates. These bills were marked with either an R or an S. The R stood for regular, while the S was for special, but not because of the paper. The special bills had a secret ingredient, a mix of melamine resin and titanium dioxide. Over 1.8 million bills of each type were printed and sent to Chicago. But the experiment was a flop. After nearly 2 years, less than 10% of the bills had been returned to the Treasury. People loved the novelty of the red R and S and held on to them. This wasn't the first time the BEP experimented with paper. Earlier tests in 1933 and 1935 with different paper blends for $1 silver certificates also failed to produce useful results. The story of American currency during World War II is far from over. The United States also printed money for Allied forces around the world. That's a story for another time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe. If you want to know more about this topic, comment more in the comments section. From the crazy challenge of paying for a giant war to the weirdness of secret money and coins made of strange stuff, there's a lot more to the story than just special bills. It's a tale of how people came together, sacrificed, and got really creative to keep things running. See you next time.